Pam. Pam.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of council for Wednesday, November 6th. The time is 7 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order and note that Mayor Henderson is on Zoom with us tonight and the rest of the council is present. I'd like to open the meeting by acknowledging that the District of Sechelt is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Sechelt Nation. We respect the histories, language, and culture of the people of the Sechelt Nation, whose presence continues to enrich this community. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask for any declarations of conflict. Seeing none, I'll ask for adoption of the agenda. Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I would actually like to make a motion to refer item 5.6, council appointments, to next week's in-camera session. So we can have a more complete discussion about appointments and which committees we participate on and things like that.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that motion? Okay. Any discussion from council? Mayor Henderson?
No.
No. All right, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin opposed. All right, so removing 5.6 off the agenda then, can I have a motion to adopt? And a second, and all in favor? You in favor, Mayor Henderson? Yep. So moved. We have no delegations or proclamations tonight, so we're going to move to 5.1, removal and disposal or beneficial use of dewatered septic solid projects award. And we'll look to Ms. Miller. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Rowe and Council. This request for decision, we are asking that Council direct staff to award the contract for RFP 2024-14, removal and disposal or beneficial use of dewatered septic solids to Macon Construction Management Limited in the amount of $286,500 and GST. The existing approved capital budget of $500,000 is sufficient to fund this project, and that the Director of Engineering and Operations and the corporate officer be authorized to sign the agreement.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councillor Toth?
Thank you, Chair. I had just a couple questions, but I'll try one and then circle back to me. What's the actual disposal plan for the biosolids? It says here removal and disposal or beneficial use. I'm just wondering if Macon has intentions to use this as a product somewhere, or is it just going to be landfilled? Thank you.
Sorry, you just turned your mic off and yeah, there we go.
Oh, thank you. Yes, they're planning on beneficial use through Salish soils.
Great. Other questions? Councillor McLaughlin?
Yes, thank you to the chair. I'm just wondering, I noticed that there were two bids and the one that we're proposing is like 50% more than the other bid. And so I don't know how much of this is confidential, but is there anything you can tell us about why you chose this bid for with that big difference in amount? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question through the chair. This was a request for proposal, and so there was a lot of different items that were weighed as well as price. And the biggest considerations were experience, qualifications, technical approach, safety, and regulatory compliance. And Macon came out above with all of those other categories.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? What would you like to do, council? Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi.
Mayor Henderson.
Yep. Just for everybody, my apologies for not being there.
Sorry, John, your sound is non-existent here. It's breaking up, but now you're gone.
Um,
How about there? Does that work any better?
Way better, yep.
Thank you. So my question for Ms. Miller is, when will we have to do this again? Any predictions?
From past experience, we're looking at every 4 years unless we find an alternative way to process the
Mm.
solids.
Right. Thank you.
You, anything else from council? Okay, what would you like to do?
I will move the recommendations on page 4 as presented.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bell. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Miller. Okay, moving to 5.2, development permit with variance for 5556 and 5558 Nickerson Road, Everbright. Who's going to be Mr. Hall, go ahead.
Thank you, Council. We have a development variance permit here related to a subdivision application. The variance is focused on regulations within the subdivision and development bylaw as opposed to the zoning bylaw like we've had with a number of more recent variances. In this case, looking at reducing the width of a statutory right-of-way from 5 meters down to 3 meters. The subdivision bylaw by default requires a minimum of 3 meters where there's 1 municipal service and 5 meters where there's 2 municipal services. So in this case, there's an existing statutory right-of-way that's 3 meters wide that has stormwater currently within it. In order to come up with a better servicing proposal for the subdivision, they're proposing to put sanitary sewer down this statutory right-of-way too. So they need the variance to reduce the width for us to be able to consider 2 services within the narrower width. In terms of technical questions, I would defer you to Director of Engineering. But basically, the staff are in support of this. It is a unique situation, and by default, we want more right-of-way width when we have multiple services. But in this particular case, this would result in a better servicing outcome for the proposed subdivision.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, thank you. I read the information, I looked at the report, and it would be good to hear a little more as to why this is beneficial. If we could touch on that a little more, and why this makes sense, because is it precedent setting? Because we'd all love to have, as a builder and or developer, less of a corridor to have to provide to the district and build and utilize more land for building and or infrastructure. So I just wanted to hear more of a rationale. Yeah, and that's my first comment. Thanks, Chair.
Is that for you, Mr. Hall, or for Director Lee, perhaps? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So in this case, the alternative would be private pumped sewer for a number of homes due to the topography of the area. So by running the sanitary sewer down the existing statutory right-of-way, we can achieve gravity sewer for the entire subdivision. And that, of course, is less liability, both for the homeowners and the district in the future. Of course, the issue with that is it's much more challenging to construct, it's challenging to maintain. So weighing those 2 options, it's our feeling that this is still the better option. I don't think it's precedent setting because we're kind of between these 2 options. We're recommending this as as the best of the worst scenario for a very challenging area. But in any other case, it would have to be the better option, which it rarely, if ever, is. This is a special situation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Mayor Henderson and then I'll come back if you have another question. Mayor Henderson.
Thank you. I want to just pick up on that a bit. I'm actually not opposed to reducing the statutory right of way. I think we're looking for more housing. We're looking for a bit more density in certain places. And I'd actually kind of intrigued if this did set some sort of, I don't know, indication. I don't want to use precedent. Maybe that's too legalistic, but that we are receptive to being creative and having a narrower rights of way on properties that might otherwise not be developable. So perhaps there's not a question in that as much as a statement that I think I support this, and I would support other similar projects that require narrower SRWs. Thank you.
Thank you. Any, Councillor Toth?
Thank you, Chair. I saw mention in here that if it's a single service, we sort of only ask for 3 meters. If it's 2, it's 5. Is that, do we receive or do we seek a lot of 3-meter statutory right-of-ways, or do we try and go for a 5-meter even if there's only one sewer or one service planned at this time? Because there might be something like this, you know, an additional service trying to come through in the future. Just wondering sort of process-wise when we deal with new applications.
Mr. Hall?
I think, I mean, we're trying in general to move away from needing statutory rights of way at all and ensuring that all utilities are going in the road right of way, in the public road right of way. So we have certainly areas like this where there are some existing statutory right of ways from previous subdivision decisions and developments. So it's kind of, in those cases, making use of options that might be there, but in general for new development or infill development, trying as much as possible to have it designed so that everything is within the public road right of way and not needing statutory right of ways that go over private property. That would be the default that we're trying to achieve.
Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. Did the developer design it with a 5-meter or a 3-meter right away? And with the smaller right of way, will we be losing the opportunity to do like tree canopy design in the future and other things? Thank you.
Go ahead.
I guess the original design involved the strata infrastructure up and the private pumping. So having everything kind of come back from this new road onto Nickerson, and because of the grades, that necessitated the private pumping for a number of lots. So then when they decided that they wanted to try an alternative approach and make use of the existing statutory right-of-ways, the developer did try to negotiate with a neighboring property owner to acquire an additional 2 meters on their property to form up a 5-meter right-of-way between two properties, but they were unable to be successful in that negotiation. So right now there's an existing 5-meter right-of-way directly adjacent to their property, which then goes to a 3-meter right-of-way below that. So they were unable to negotiate to widen that lower 3-meter right-of-way. So that kind of puts them back into either keeping with their existing mix of strata and non-strata lots, or going for the variance route to fit 2 services in the existing 3-meter right-of-way.
Do you see any, what was the second part of your question, McLaughlin?
Yeah, certainly within, the public road right of way. I mean, that's something we're looking at trying to grapple with, different street standards and, streetscaping issues. In terms of statutory right of ways, it becomes a little bit more challenging because the goal is to kind of prevent any kind of structures or limited vegetation within them that could interfere with the services underground, so that there's a bit of a conflict there. So the challenge is try to deal with what's around the area and then sort of protect that without allowing encroachments within the statutory right-of-way area. So it's not necessarily the best location to try to improve the urban forest versus, a new street area.
Thank you. Counselor Toth.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, I'm looking at the map on page 11 here. It's the property on the right-hand most side of the screen here that I think is what we're really talking about, the 3-meter statutory right-of-way. And my understanding is that when we've got these utility statutory right-of-ways, it really only gives us right to the subsurface based on what we're doing. Like, we're not gonna go in here and plant trees on somebody's private property up against their house or put a sidewalk through, because that's not what the right-of-way is for. I'm just seeking that confirmation that that's correct.
Gotcha. Counselor Bell.
Yes, through the chair, and just, I'm noticing on page 6, under summary, there we go, summary. And just curious about the comment, the application involves a complicated arrangement of strata and non-strata lots and infrastructure. I'm just curious, I certainly am hearing that it's even in spite of this, that it's a better to move to this decision based on better servicing. But what does this, what is that concern?
I guess under the original proposal, because of the grades of the property and the inability of some lots to have gravity sewer back to Nickerson Road, necessitated that certain lots had to have private pumping, and so that the district doesn't, we have another bylaw that doesn't allow private pumps as part of new subdivisions, so only in the case where it's strata infrastructure. So then we have those lots that can't connect via gravity sewer have to be strata lots so they can have the private pumps, and then you have this strata infrastructure to service those lots intermixed with the remaining non-strata lots. So that's the complication that we're referring to. So in this proposal for the variance, that would eliminate that entirely, because then all lots could be gravity fed. Some will be back towards Nickerson, some will be down the statutory right of way, and then they can all be non-strata, and there'll be no other complicating factors.
Thank you. I have to apologize for cutting Counselor Toth off there. Do you want to finish your thought? Sorry. Okay. Do you recall what Counselor Toth said 2 minutes ago? Can you confirm or deny that that's the case?
Yeah, I guess in terms of statutory rights of way, what gets registered on title is in terms of the area and what's allowed and not allowed. It's kind of prescriptive, and we don't want to see, like, we're not going in and planting things. It's kind of like, okay, if there's existing things, if we had to go in and maintain an area and replace a pipe, then it's kind of going in and trying to replace kind of what's there. But the statutory right of way doesn't allow for encroachments. Like, people aren't supposed to build on there. They're not supposed to plant a whole bunch of other trees or vegetation. So it's not, yeah, like we wouldn't, unless the statutory right of way was intended to do something in addition to the services. If it's just sewer or sanitary, sewer or stormwater, it's really just to provide us access to be able to maintain and replace that as needed, not to provide any other.
Thank you.
uses.
Any other questions from council? All right, what would you like to do, council? Counselor Bell?
I move that development variance permit 2024-22 be approved.
And a seconder? And any further discussion? All right, all in favor? And any opposed? No one opposed. Thank you. Thanks so much. Okay. Moving to 5.3, development permit for 6089 Rosewood Place. Are you speaking to this one? Oh, Mr. Baker, hello.
Good evening, council. Yes, so before you is a development permit application for form and character at 6089 Rosewood Place. This is for a 4-unit small scale multi-unit housing development in a townhouse housing form. To just give you a quick overview, so the proposed project meets R3 zoning and parking regulations. In regards to the actual unit themselves, it's a 3 stories with garage on the bottom, living space on the second story, and 3 bedrooms in each unit on the 3rd story. the proposed development is subject to development permit area number 8, so that's for intensive residential and infill housing developments. And having gone through them, the project appears to meet most of the objectives and guidelines of development permit number 8. So that's just a quick run down of the application. So staff are recommending that council approve the development permit. And of course, if you have any questions, staff will try to answer the best they can. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Counselor Bill, your light's on. Does that
sorry.
mean you? No. Counselor McLaughlin?
Thank you, through the chair. Just wondering here, it looks like there's some kind of stream or something, some kind of environmental right-of-way. And I wonder if you could tell us about that and what steps would be taken to protect that. Thank you.
Yes, so when this area was developed, forgive me, I don't quite remember the year, but it is a rather recent development. So there was land that was dedicated. So there's a creek ravine abutting these lots. So in order for this previous subdivision to be approved, the previous developer had to submit environmental reports to get the project approved, of course. So in regards to this project specifically, the application will still require or is still subject to a steep slope DP. So the applicants will have to submit a updated, basically an environmental memo to support the project. But because of the nature of that development permit, it is delegated to staff. So that will be subsequent to this, if this application gets approved.
Sorry,
Follow-up?
clarification, yeah. So what was done for the riparian area? Were you saying it was just dedicated as part of a development? That's all that there is to it?
Yes, yeah. So again, just during the previous subdivision application, I'm not sure if Manager Hall can expand on that, but there was area, the creek ravine, that was dedicated as parkland to the district. And having been to the site in person, it's quite barren. There's a lot of refuse or like natural vegetation that's been piled on the site. So it's quite barren right now. And the applicants will be required to landscape the area as well.
Go ahead, Mr. Hall.
Yeah, so part of the subdivision that created all these lots in the first place, they did have to do the riparian assessment and determine that, and that was dedicated as part of that original subdivision decision. So there is or will be a trail along the southern side of the creek, so at the back of these lots. And then there is a second subdivision for the north side of this stream area. And there would be a trail on that side too. So there's it was sort of a phase 1, phase 2, and the phase 1 represents the southern side of this. So yeah, all the riparian assessment was all done during the subdivision stage. So there's not really anything further to be done on the existing lots.
Thank you. Any Mayor Henderson?
Thank you, Chair. Question is more, this is going to end up as a 4-lot strata. Does staff have any advice or comments on, the veracity of that? I guess, and are we encouraging small stratas or discouraging them?
Any comment on that question? Yep, Mr. Hall?
I think it's probably likely that we'll see more of these building stratas as part of the kind of small scale multi-unit housing stuff moving forward. It's unlikely. I mean, obviously this isn't a bare land strata. I mean, we might see more of those too, but I think in general with the small scale housing with the duplex, triplex, quadplex type housing forms, it's very likely we'll see more of these building stratas done where there's an existing lot and somebody's trying to put on new dwelling units or additional dwelling units that they'll try to stratify that, just as a way of being able to sell the units individually, because they wouldn't be able to subdivide the land any further.
Yeah, Chair, if I may, it's just something for us to be aware of, because I mean, anybody who's been part of a strata, you know, it can be wonderful if there's 100 units. It can be a disaster if there's 100 units. And I guess I'm trying to wrap my mind around what Mr. Hall just said, that we will get a lot more of these from the small scale developments, and that's going to make it a challenge for people to meet their obligations as stratas. Food for thought today. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes, I guess I'm just concerned that this is the lot that really is closest to the riparian area, and it's by far, as it turns out, the highest density. And you know, it would have been nice to see a site plan that shows the path or something there, because I don't really see anything that reflects that. And I mean, really, is this conservation design? It doesn't look like it to me. And we're supposed to be doing conservation design according to our OCP, especially for multifamily developments. Unfortunately, we're thinking this is an alternative to a single family home, but actually it is actually, you know, multifamily, which has kind of a higher design requirement, taking into account the neighborhood and the different site elements. And I don't really see any of that here. It's just, you know, what I would like to see going forward, especially after going to a Livable Cities conference. I feel like I'm not really seeing it here. And, you know, we're running out of time to actually try and do conservation design and to help the environment. Thank you.
Councilor Inkster.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I'm looking at the drawings presented, and I have to ask, and I always ask for this if possible, is to see what the neighboring homes and or plans are. So I'm always looking for photographs of the neighborhood adjacent and a better aerial view. Not seeing that, but based on what's presented here, I'm seeing a fairly large 4-unit piece near the riparian zone, and I'm not really clear what else is there. I guess it's just, we'll just call it the riparian zone in a subdivision. So I'm assuming that we have a fairly tall 4-unit strata. I guess it'll be interesting to see how many members end up on the strata council there. But so we have a 4-unit strata, fairly tall, looks like 2 to 3 stories, next to 1 to 2 story homes in a cluster. So I'm just wondering if that fits.
That's a statement.
It's a question. Does planning see this fitting in that with all these other 1 to 2 story single family homes right next to them with a 4-unit strata? Thanks.
So perhaps maybe I can just provide some context. So again, upon the site visit, so to the rear of the subject property, there is a single detached dwelling located there. However, it is located higher up, and then there to the south of the subject property, there's an additional single detached dwelling. In regards to the context of I guess the neighborhood, I mean, small scale multi-unit housing, as everyone's well aware, is built, you know, the province is really pushing this. It is new, I would argue, for a lot of planning departments across the province to try and incorporate into neighborhood scale. So I can see it being a challenge, but you know, I think this is something that we're very likely going to see more of, and yeah, like planning staff will have to be cognizant of kind of the neighborhood context, but it is a challenge, to say the least, to try and incorporate what's existing and then what's being permitted. So, thank you.
Councillor Inkster.
Thanks, Adam. I would ask further then, do we know what lot coverage is of this proposal? What the lot coverage of this building on this land is?
Yeah, so the zoning maximum lot coverage is 45%, and the development is actually 44.9%. So they're just meeting the lot coverage maximum.
Oh, okay. Madam Chair, one of the problems is this proposal coming to us for a decision tonight without going to Cal, is that I have some problems with it, and I just wish we could get more information and suss it out a little more, because we have a few of them here tonight, and I just get uncomfortable because it doesn't come to Cal first, and this is just one where I'm leery that if we don't make the right decision and we don't thresh it out properly, and we only seem to have tonight, is that it's kind of going to look like a sore thumb next to a riparian zone, and I'm just not comfortable. It happens every once in a while with what we're allowing there. Just don't know, based on what is presented here, whether it will look good, whether it will fit. We've had other proposals come to us, and there's one later on tonight in West Sechelt that, in my mind, fits. I'm just not sure whether this fits.
Okay. I'll ask you to hold that thought and take Mayor Henderson's question.
Thank you, Chair. I've actually got friends who live in this area, and I think this type of development is the way of the future. It's already, yes, they're technically single-family homes, but they're quite dense. They're, narrow lot line or gaps between the homes and stuff. And I think it's perfect. Would it be nice to get it through Cal? I don't have that concern. I think the staff have done their job. They've got, they wouldn't bring it here if they weren't recommending it. And I think it's the right thing in the right place. So I'd like to, in that respect, move the recommendation on page, whatever it is, page 12.
Page 12.
The DP 2024-16 be approved.
Okay, do I have a seconder? I have a seconder from Councillor Todd. Further discussion on this then?
Yeah. Thank you,
Councillor,
through the
Faulkner.
chair. I know we're trying to do the SMU developments and provide density in housing, but I think you also have to look at the location and the environmental factors and the existing community that's there, a new community. And also, apparently there's some designs or ideas about doing on the other side of the creek, the north side. And, I don't see why we can't see a draft of what that would look like and see how these two developments in this whole little area will be a little community. It's not a rush, really. And I think it's important that we take the time to do that, especially since these creeks are of concern to First Nations as well. And to just build like it's, from, I don't know, we did green bylaws, 15, 20 years ago, with a minimum bylaw requirement without any other consideration to the environmental aspects. I think we're not really showing what Sechelt is about, which is about nature. I mean, there's lots of places we can put density now, but I think we have to make a choice of the other impacts that are happening in the environmental, the cumulative, environmental impacts of all these little developments, and to make it a walkable, pleasant area, and perhaps ask for additional amenities when there's density being asked for. And I don't see that happening here. So I would like to see the committee of the whole and get a little more information on this and see if we can
So
feel
we
more
have a,
comfortable.
okay, so we have a recommendation, you're speaking against.
I'm
this
speaking against
recommendation.
it. Yes,
you.
thank you.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Counselor
Yeah,
Inkster.
thanks, Chair. I've said this already in a sense, and I'll condense it more. I just think we're rushing. Why the rush? We have so many lots and plans on our books that we've approved. I think we approved a number right out of the gate when we were elected that have not started yet. And we've always encouraged them when I've spoken to them, you know, get going, we're approving them because we need housing. And so I wonder if to have more discussion on this, because we're always rushing. You know, let's approve all these. We got 600-700 lots waiting to be developed. Let's get some more on there. And once in a while, I think we should just, you know, maybe just hold off and see if this fits. Thanks.
Thank you.
Counselor Toth.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I am supportive of this. You know, it's zoning compliant. This is what the province is telling us they want us to do, and this is what the applicant is coming, which is something that is compliant with our zoning and compliant with the provincial regulations around increasing housing. When I drove through that neighborhood a couple of years ago, I was quite disappointed to see that it was just more stamped down single-family homes. Do I wish, you know, given that it's next to the creek, yeah, I suppose there is valid concern about proximity to riparian area, things like that. But I have to trust that the original subdivision took the riparian zone into account. And so the land that was created for lot out of that subdivision is buildable, and it fits the coverage and it fits our zoning. So I don't really take issue with this moving forward. Thank you.
Great, I think, gonna call the question. I believe we've had good discussion. I don't see a hand on the screen. So everyone is aware of the recommendation that is on the table. So all in favor? And opposed? Councilors McLaughlin and Inkster. Thank you. All right, moving on to 5.4, development permit for industrial subdivision at 5980 Seashell Inlet, Lot 12. Seashell Inlet Crescent. Is that you, Mr. Hall? Or I can't say Marina's last name.
Both Marina and I are available for this. I guess I will just say something up front.
Thank you.
We have this property here has been through a number of applications. There was a rezoning application a number of years ago to rezone it to industrial to allow the industrial subdivision, which is currently underway in terms of its application, and the development permit and the development variance permit are both tied to the subdivision application. So that's what's before you tonight as we move the subdivision application forward. You know, they need the development permit to proceed. The development variance permit, similar to the one earlier on the agenda, is again focused on the subdivision bylaw regulations. So it's seeking to vary some of those pieces within subdivision bylaw 430. And coming from the rezoning application, there's been a number of covenants put on title. So there's quite a lot going on this particular property for this industrial subdivision. We have covenants on title in terms of the phasing and different requirements from phase 1 to phase 2. There's the subdivision servicing pieces for phase 1, which is the subdivision that we're dealing with right now. We have the development permit and the variance permit. So there's a lot going on here. Fair enough if council is potentially confused on how this all relates, but all of this is basically to move the subdivision application forward to basically allow the first phase to be done, and then that would set the stage for a subsequent phase 2 at some point.
Thank you. We'll start with Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Chair. Seeing on page 78 that, you know, perk testing was done as long ago as 2017. So it's nice to see that this is sort of reaching its last stages before it can get going. I've got two questions. The first is that there's a number of stormwater tanks shown on page 63 and 64 that look like they're just for infiltration. I'm wondering if staff or the proponent looked at the ability to use any of that water for irrigation or gray water use on the sites. Could be an opportunity to do something different. You know, the largest tank looks like it's 53,000 liters in size. So it's a substantial amount of water. Just wondering if the proponents looked at that. Thank you.
Any comments on that? Do we know?
It's certainly not something that the district has been requiring them to do. I think they have been, I suppose that potential does exist, but it's not something that we're requiring them to explore through the subdivision at this time, but.
Go ahead, follow up.
Thank you, Chair. Follow up. So I guess that being said, I hope it's something that we get more of our development community taking note of when they bring stuff forward, is if you've got this water, rather than just, you know, pour it into the ground or into a ditch, is there something better you could be doing with it? But a question that I do have that does pertain to the, you know, things that we should know. I'm hoping staff can remind me if there was any need for TELUS to do any improvements on along their frontage of Seashell Inlet Road, because it looks like this development is going to be doing all of it. I'm just wondering if there was any requirement for TELUS to contribute. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah,
Hall.
so the TELUS Marina site on the west side of Seashell Inlet Road is doing their frontage. So they're responsible for that. So that means then for this industrial subdivision, with the swapping of the frontage that's proposed in the variance, obviously the portion that TELUS is now doing won't have to be done by the subdivision applicant, and they'll do the remainder side of their frontage. So that was one of those things where this was kind of happening, and then TELUS came along, and it was anybody's guess about who would go first, but TELUS has gone first. So it just means that there's less frontage on the west side for this applicant to do.
Thank you. Counselor Inkster, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Chair. This actually, this proposal is in an area with neighboring industrial use and activity. It actually fits as opposed to the one that I saw the last time, 10 minutes ago. So I'll be supportive. The roadway is built for industry in that area based on its width and construction. So I'm comfortable with any further proposals of industrial lots in that area. One question I would ask is there any kind of landscape buffering between the property itself and the highway and East Porpoise Bay Road? I'm saying that, Chair, because of course this is industrial area, and it's a good taxable area for us, and it's good for economic sustainability, but it doesn't always have to, from the road where our residents travel, look like an industrial area from the road. Thank you.
Mr. Hall.
Oh, good question. Yes, definitely that was something that was raised through the rezoning process in terms of public concerns about the development. So that's something that's been kind of enshrined in covenants on title, as well as current zoning regulations. And, for the subdivision, yeah, there would be landscape screening requirements along Seashell Inlet Road. There's buffering requirements along the southern boundary where there's a shared boundary with an ALR property. So there's a bunch of different components. The zoning bylaw itself also has some landscape screening provisions related to industrial areas. So there's a bunch of different components that get at that particular piece.
Thank you. Counselor Shepherd.
Just to comment on that through the chair, East Porpoise Bay Group Community Association was in favor and specifically asked for the buffering to be put in place. Also that the improvements on the south side of the road or west side of the road be paid for by the developer, and all that's in the agreement. So they're in support of this application. Thanks.
Thank you. Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you. Noticed on page 131, there is a little finger of land, a little parcel that it says is going to be a proposed public road connection. Is that existing public road, or would we have to actually turn it into a public road as a municipality?
I guess just to clarify, which part of the development are you coming of the road
Oh.
coming off of Seashell Inlet Crescent?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So there is there is an existing lot, I think it's lot 12 on Seashell Inlet Crescent that the property owner owns in addition to the larger lot. So what they had, what is part of this proposal is to dedicate that lot to the district to turn into a road that provides them and that interior road access, the road B, or sorry, road A. Because that was more feasible for them to develop to provide access into the interior of their lot than trying to construct the road B from Seashell Inlet Road along the north side of their property because it's quite steep in the early sections there. So this lot 12 that's part of the package would be fully dedicated to the district, and that would allow the construction of the road A, which would be the public road that goes into the middle of the subdivision.
Just fault, yeah, it's the developer's going to pay for that road?
Yes.
Be totally
Yep.
done?
Yep.
And the adjacent lots know about it and are okay with that? Having that road become a permanent public road?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly benefits them. I guess they, in terms of the subdivision, they don't necessarily have a say on that. But that's, the district has kind of reviewed this and that this provides good access into this property that could eventually continue north through this property and then through the neighboring property, the campground property that is also designated industrial. So it's not, and I think it is currently zoned industrial, but if in future that was used for industrial purposes, this road A could continue north through that property as well, connect up with Dusty Road.
Isn't there a legal process we have to go through to have a road dedicated?
It's all part of the subdivision.
But I mean, from a road's point of view, a legal process, to have it dedicated as a road?
It's all done through the subdivision application. So as they're registering the lots, they're dedicating all the roads that haven't been dedicated. Like, so the donation of this lot and the dedication of it as a road is all happening at the same time as the subdivision is being approved and registered.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm just having some difficulty thinking of it as a lot, a land lot, and then turning it into a road, which then becomes part of, is no longer a land lot, it's a road lot.
Yep.
Which we legally is going to require some legal work to be done. So they're paying for all that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further questions on this item?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Given we've still got people without power because trees have fallen across the lines, I need to just understand the magnitude of the cost. There was an original proposal to underground all the wires, and I think if I'm right, it was considered to be prohibitively expensive. What is there an order of magnitude that staff can give us? Because boy, I'd sure like to see a lot more of our homes still have power when the trees fall.
So are you asking like cost above ground versus underground? We've lost, you're muted.
I think if I understand correctly, the original proposal or request was to underground, and then it because if I'm correct, the power that's going along the road there presumably services residential properties as well as that local property. So I'm trying to figure out, is it worth it, even if I guess I'm brainstorming here, but is it worth it to still ask for it to be underground, even if we had to contribute something? Would it create a more livable neighborhood, either with Edgewater or any of the residential areas to the north?
Like, that's a broad comment. Was it originally underground?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is something that the subdivision bylaw generally wants to
sorry.
see power undergrounded, although there are some provisions that, some guidelines that kind of favor for industrial areas to say, hey, it's not as important for this. Hence kind of the, kind of in the goal of trying to support the industrial subdivision. It is extremely expensive to underground the lines. in any context. So this is something that, while we certainly like to, pursue that where we can, and it does have implications for storm protection and all these other things and visual benefits. I think in this particular case, when we're looking at costs of development and trying to support an industrial subdivision and the need for industrial land, looking to offer some savings to the developer where possible, where there's certain things that weighing the trade-off of undergrounding the lines versus the cost of doing so versus other things that they have to do to provide proper access and servicing to this development.
Yep, go ahead, Ms. Mayor.
Thank you. I just want to emphasize, this is not just about the developer. This is why I made the point, even if it was that the additional cost was covered through other reserves or other systems. In terms of livability, finding ways to underground more and more of our community is a good approach. I'm not suggesting we do it here today, but the impact on people around Mason Road and the highway that are still without power, I think they'd be very happy if they had a mechanism to help contribute to undergrounding the wires that mean they're without power for the last 3 days. So not on this proposal directly, but I'd like to see staff give us some better order of magnitude. I have no idea if undergrounding costs $1,000 a foot or $100,000 a foot. I'd obviously have a better or a different reaction if it's 100,000 a foot than if it was 1,000 a foot.
All right, so noted. Councillor Toth?
Thank you. I just wanted to chime in on that because I guess from a undergrounding of the utilities perspective, yeah, it'd be great in an ideal situation to do it. But consider the section of Seashell Inlet Road that the province is responsible for and is upgrading right now. They've moved the hydro lines over twice to get going for that project rather than undergrounding them. And then I guess in previous developments, when the industrial lot to the south was subdivided, it was not ever considered for undergrounding hydro lines either. This particular lot would end up with a weird situation where you'd dip the hydro wires underground for 200-300 feet and then bring them back up above ground. But if memory serves me correctly, when we did the Trail Avenue improvements, the cost for us to underground the lines at that time was going to be something like $1.1 or $1.2 million, I think. And so, it's extremely expensive. And it's definitely something we have to give serious consideration to. Thank you.
Councillor Inkster?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I'm still supportive of this, but it's a good conversation. A number of years ago, the wires at the intersection were discussed to be undergrounded with a couple of proposals, and the district was going to be cross-sharing to get. I don't know if people remember, but at that time, there was a lot of wires in the air, and it looked awful. It looked like there's like 3 birds' nests, and so but we had to spend money over a number of years to put a number of those wires underground. It was so cost prohibitive. That having been said, I think we need to consider it with maybe some densification, and because that then creates an economy of scale to afford that, because we're not going to see a decrease in heat during the summer. We're not going to see a decrease in water during the winter coming out of the sky, and we're not going to see a decrease in windstorms. And we all know why that is, and it starts with a C, and the second word starts with a C. So we need to start talking about this, but I'm comfortable with voting on this right now. Thanks.
I'm going to take that as that you're moving recommendation 1 on page 34. And I see a second from Councillor Toth. Any further discussion on the recommendation? No. All in favor? So moved. Okay. 5.5, development variance permit, 45980 Seychelles Inlet Road, etc. Page 122. Who's gonna, anybody want to speak to this one?
Bye.
All right.
Well, I'll just jump in and apologize. No wonder you looked quizzical. I was speaking to the next page, which we're now talking about when I talked about undergrounding.
Sorry, I'm just getting myself together here. Got a newbie here. Okay, so we are talking about development variance permit on page 122. Are there, go ahead.
Thank you. I think we discussed the topic to death here with the last item, so
Yeah.
I'm going to move the recommendation on page 122 as presented.
Thank you, and seconded by Counselor Shepherd. Nope, we're good. Call the question, all in favor? So moved, none opposed. Okay, 5.6 has been referred. 5.7, page 137 of the agenda, which is the 2025 acting mayor appointment. Which I'm somewhat uncomfortable talking about myself, however. It's that time of year that we look at this item. And so at this point, I will say that I am happy to stay on as acting mayor, but I do want to hear from council. If there's anyone else that would like to step in and get the experience, et cetera, speak now. Oh, God. Counselor Inkster.
If you're okay with it, continuing, I will nominate you to continue. I'm introducing that. Yes.
All right, second, or Counselor Bell.
I also support this, and I feel right now that we need consistency, and I think you've been doing a great job, so I also support you staying on.
All right, everyone in favor of me, raise your hand. Anyone opposed to me, raise your hand. Staff, put your hand down, Andrew Allen. All right, carried. Thank you for your overwhelming vote of confidence. Okay, so let's look at 5.8, 139, which is our calendar for next year. I can't believe it's 2025. We're talking about what it is. Any, Counselor Toth, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I'm looking at the schedule itself on page 141 of our agenda package. And given that we had a similar gap between the end of July and the August meeting this year, that sort of threw everybody for a loop with the 2-week gap, I'd like to throw it out there that we add a regular council meeting on July 30th, which would be the 5th week of the month. And we actually remove the August 6th meeting.
Settle down. Is there a second for that? Thank you. Is there a discussion? I would agree. I just like to think that we have August off, and I myself did get caught, ended up working all of August anyways, but I think this makes sense to me. I'm certainly happy with it. Any other comments? Staff isn't looking too terribly worried about it. So, okay, so Counselor Toth has made a recommendation that we add July 30th and delete August 6th to the 2025 calendar. And second for that? And all in favor? Oh, sorry.
So
And a seconder for approving the calendar as amended? All in favor? Okay. Now, this is where Brenda Rowe sometimes loses track, so be patient with the bylaws, everybody. Okay, 6.1, moving into bylaws, zoning amendment for Sunshine Coast Community Services, 5638, Inlet Avenue, page 142, and this is for adoption. Thank you. Second, Counselor Shepherd. Any discussion on this? All in favor? Okay, now, settle down. Okay. So bylaw number 580-17, 2024, 5638 Inlet Avenue, a bylaw to amend District of Sechelt zoning bylaw 580, 2022. And do I have Counselor Shepherd is moving adoption? Counselor Toth is seconded. All, any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. 6.2 zoning amendment for C4 zone Sunshine Coast Chamber of Commerce. This is for adoption as well. Moved by Counselor Shepherd, seconded by Counselor Toth. All in favor? Or, I'm sorry, okay. Opposed? Counselor McLaughlin, did you vote? Okay. No vote? Okay. Oh. Okay, so that's moved. So District of Sechelt bylaw number 580-16, 2024 C4 zone, a bylaw to amend District of Sechelt zoning bylaw 580, 2022. So moved by Counselor Toth, seconded by Counselor Shepherd. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, 6.3, rezoning for townhouse units 5397 McCourt Road, page 152. Was somebody speaking to this or just for questions?
No, I can speak to it, Council. So we have this rezoning application that Council saw a while ago. It went to the Advisory Planning Commission back in May. The APC had a number of recommendations. So since that time, the applicant has been working on a response to that. They've made a number of changes and updates. They provided a bit of a response document that was outlined or attached to this report. And there's updated plans that they prepared. So we have the bylaw back for second and third reading, as well as kind of following up on some of the previous resolutions from the last council report in terms of just confirming water conservation aspects and the community amenity contribution piece. So that's why there's extensive recommendations for council to consider. But basically, the bylaw is ready to get second and third reading. We are able now to take advantage of the provincial changes, because the zoning amendment bylaw is consistent with the OCP. No public hearing is required, so we can give it second and third reading. There'll be no public hearing. We will have to get MOTI, Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure approval of the bylaw after third reading before we can bring it back to council for adoption. So the next steps, if council gives it readings tonight, would be to send it off to MOTI for their review. The applicant has submitted draft covenants for our review, so that's underway. So that'll all need to be finalized before we would bring it back to council, ideally before the end of the year for adoption of the zoning amendment. So yeah, otherwise I'm available for questions, but everything else is kind of outlined in the report in terms of the water conservation and the community amenity aspects.
Okay. I'm going to start with Counselor Inkster this time. You guys were a tie. Counselor Inkster, go ahead.
So it's good to see a couple of things here. The improvements to McCourt Road that anybody that lives in that neighborhood can identify with, especially in wintertime, coming down to the highway. And it may make that road more appealing to local people in the neighborhood and users, because I think they're all feeding up to Norwest Bay and other roads because of the steepness. The other thing is the linear park aspect, which I think council heard me talk about, which will be present here, which is really important. Once again, it keeps kids from your subdivision, Norvan subdivision, off the main roads and through the subdivision. So that's really key. Just a couple of things here, though. There's some recommendations. The amenity contribution to Piccadilly Park. I don't know if that's specific, but I hope, and I know the staff members probably listening, that we have some discussion on what that may be, because I think we need some new and/or additional pieces to that playground that hopefully we can do through a quick community consult in the area to see what we need and properly add needed equipment for the families that live in the area. Thanks.
Counselor Toth?
Thank you, Chair. And Councillor Inkster beat me to it, but the Piccadilly Park contribution was the question that I had, which $50,000 for an amenity contribution for Piccadilly Park. I'm just wondering if staff can, I saw that there was a little bit of reference in here. I'm just wondering if staff could further explain if there is an intended project that this is going towards, or if it's just to be held in reserve until we make some park improvements. Was there any conversation about doing direct park improvements rather than accepting cash? Because we talk a lot about, cash amenity contributions getting spent somewhere down the road sometime, and by the time they get spent, the development that contributed them is forgotten about. Whereas if a developer is impacting a neighborhood building, their subdivision, any ability for them to construct an amenity or do a direct improvement is something that neighborhood can see that is directly tied to that subdivision. Thank you. Just wondering if staff can speak to that.
Mr. Hall?
Certainly, we had discussions with park staff about this whole issue in terms of parkland versus park improvements, and ultimately settling on getting a contribution specific to Piccadilly Park and specific to playground improvements. So while there is no specific, capital project that's been prepared in terms of this is what we're going to do, park staff certainly identified there is a need to improve the playground at Piccadilly Park. So that this contribution would go in support of that. Because there was no project kind of identified and kind of ready to go, it would be more difficult to get the developer to construct something when we don't have a project that's kind of ready to go, and we weren't looking for them to design something more as like, let's get a contribution, and then that'll support staff in future budget years to start to assign more money to make that improvement. So that's the intent of this.
What?
Thank you. And so just to follow up, looking at page 157, it's mentioned that at the subdivision stage, park dedication requirement would be addressed through a cash in lieu, which would be approximately $158,000. And so I'm just wondering if that just comes in as a general contribution, or if that is also something that can be specifically earmarked for Piccadilly Park or what have you. Thank you.
Mr. Hall?
The cash in lieu contributions for park at a subdivision stage do just go into a general fund. They're not earmarked for specific geographical locations, but the original intent of the cash in lieu was primarily for land acquisition, but the province has changed regulations that would allow us to use that money also for park improvements. So certainly the money can go to supporting this project too, but the money just goes into a general fund at the moment.
Counselor Inkster?
Thanks. I'm glad that that particular issue took the interest of another council member, because I'd like to see us spend it ASAP on some upgrades to a park that's probably 20 years old now. And much like any of our other facilities that hit the 15, 20, 25-year mark, we need to add new things to it based on what the people enjoy. I'd love to see us have more seating areas for people to watch the games, baseball or soccer, that are down below. Figure out a way to do that. It's a small park, as anybody that lives there near there knows. One of the things I'd like to hear us, to see us consider perhaps is replanting some trees. We just lost another one there, blew down the other day, and we've lost a number due to tree rot. About 8 trees bringing Piccadilly over the last number of years. So it's not as picturesque, although it's still a beautiful park. But it also means that there's not as much shading for summer sports. So we should start maybe, and maybe this can come this way rather than us budgeting, although we do have tree programs we've said we subscribe to start retreeing the exterior of Piccadilly Park. Thanks.
Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. I am still not convinced that this is an appropriate design. I'm not in support of it. I find that the plans and the facades are extremely homogeneous. I find that it's a difficult lot to design on, granted, but I think if we had a proper neighborhood plan of some sort, we could have created a nice community. And instead, you know, we've got a park dedication on the highway as our green space, which to me is just like not really beneficial. And I would have thought it would have been nice to not just orient the homes towards the ocean view, which is what everybody does around here, but to actually orient it towards the direct south sunshine so that we could actually have, or to the proper exact angle, I'm not sure exactly what it is here, but so we could have perhaps solar panels and a green community and have an opportunity, which these are supposed to be affordable housing, to collect solar power in this very, very uniform development. At least we could maybe uniformly use solar panels or something and made something special out of it. So I think this is an opportunity lost. And I think it's, it doesn't make me too happy. I'll be voting against it.
Thank you, Counselor Shepherd.
I see this as an opportunity gained. I don't know one other residential development application that we've seen which utilizes gray water, not one. And we've been pressing for that to happen. You know, we're being told by other developers it's impossible, it's too expensive, building code's not there. We finally see one, so I think this is an opportunity, and I'm really glad to see this come before council. Really excited to see it happen. Thank you.
I would agree. You have something else, Counselor Inkster?
Yeah. I know where we're going on this. We're supporting it, which is good. I just feel that. But anyway, I think there's other opportunities in the neighborhood to get what some may want to see. There's 1 to 2 other large developable lots nearby. So those will be those opportunities that some may see as missed. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Council, what would you like to do? Counselor Todd.
I'm going to move all of the recommendations on page 152 as presented.
Seconded by Counselor Bell. And all in favor? And opposed? Counselor McLaughlin. Thank you. I think that brings us to the end of our. Oh, see? God, I almost made it through. Oh, and I even pulled it out, so it was here. Okay. District of Sechelt. Wait a minute. District of Sechelt bylaw number 580-10, 2024, bylaw to amend District of Sechelt zoning bylaw 580 2022, and this is for second and third reading, which we can do at the same time. So moved by Counselor Toth, seconded by Counselor Shepherd. All in favor? And opposed? Counselor McLaughlin opposed. Thank you, Mr. Hall and company, for your work. All right, minutes. Let me get organized here. Sorry? Yep, I'm looking. I know it'd be easier if I had. I know. Okay, minutes of October 3rd, Committee of the Whole meeting for endorsement. Move endorsement. Second, all in favor? Minutes of October 16th for adoption. Wasn't at this meeting, so I won't vote on it. Somebody wants to move adoption, Counselor Bell, Counselor Toth. All in favor? You weren't there either? So carried, thank you. 7.3, minutes of July 26, permissive tax exemption select committee. It really does have the best name. I will move endorsement for these. Seconded by Counselor Toth. All in favor? Committee of 3. Minutes of the May 21st Airport Development Select Committee. These are for receipt. Move receipt. Second, all in favor? Sorry. Oh,
Madam Chair, Business
ahead.
Rising. Yeah, just good to see the minutes. Looking forward to some movement on the airport file. Thank you.
Counselor Toth.
Thank you. I'm going to get a little more specific than that because I actually had a question here and is sort of where are we at with the airport master plan work? And is there any opportunity for either a council or community check-in before that plan is brought forward for adoption? Thank you.
Director Douglas.
Thank you. Yes, we've been in contact with with the person writing that. He's hoping to have a draft by the end of the month. And yes, it'll go to the airport committee as well as to committee of the whole prior to coming to council.
Thank you. Any other business arising? All right, Counselor Toth, do you want to start with the SCRD reports?
Guess I can. So I actually provided a written report this year. One of the community associations had asked for sort of a more comprehensive water update in writing. And so by the time I finished putting my 2 or 3 paragraphs together, it was 5 pages long. And I thought, you know what, it's a good opportunity to have as much information all in one spot as I can possibly report out on. And so because of that, I asked to include it in the agenda tonight. And I forwarded it to Counselor Shepherd to send out to the rest of the community associations for their information as well. I'm not really gonna speak to anything else SCRD. I'll leave that to the director. But I'm happy to answer any questions if I can, if there are any. Thank you.
Well, I already told you privately, but I thought it was an excellent report for doing that. Counselor Inkster, do you have SCRD stuff to add?
Not much. This report that was provided by Councillor Toth, if I were council members, I would, if you want a bigger copy or a larger copy of that, I was asked for that. I'm sure you can make that larger in some cases with some of the information that's provided. And this is a good synopsis and a good summation of what we've been working on the last number of months. So it's really good for the council members to present to community members who have questions. As long as the questions that as long as they want answers, this is helpful. If it's political in nature, I never know what to do with that. But if it's for answers, this is a very good document, and I'm glad to see the compilation of the information on the stuff that's been worked on the last couple of years by Councillor Director Toth. Right now at the regional district, it's budget time, and so the last meeting we had a week ago was identifying Monday. It was last week we identified projects that should go forward, expenditures that should go forward and or don't make the cut. And we started to discuss what the comfort levels of particular directors and municipal directors with the tax requisition. At this point, I think some are finally getting uncomfortable with large rises in tax requisitions from the public. And that's I'm glad to see that. It's hard to keep bringing forward additional tax requests from the public in many cases who are dealing with a lot of rising other costs. Tomorrow we'll talk specifically about projects and how to reach the goals of completing some of those projects and what may need to be moved forward to other years. And it's an early morning start to start talking about pre-budget stuff. So long couple of months of additional meetings to get to the budget piece. But there's been a lot of discussion. And if there's council members and or our alternates that look at the irregular agendas and don't see anything that's interesting necessarily, it would be good if they could come to look at the budget presentations and or ask the two directors at that table what they should come and witness, because it's good information to present to not only our public, but to our council and our staff as to how the regional district is moving forward with their spending. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, as promised, Councillor Shepherd, you're up.
Past 2 weeks. I did actually fill in for Councillor Toth at the SARD as an alternate. Council of the Whole, and then I think it's the monthly meeting with the Sechelt Nation to talk about water issues and or issues in general. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed their presentation on the structure of what legal entities they use to do what business, and just another chance to chat with some of their councillors about various issues. So very thankful for that role. Apart from that, we spent a few days at a conference in Victoria on community safety and wellness, but I'm actually going to let Councillor Bell sort of kick off that discussion. A really worthwhile conference for us to go to. There's a lot of that information is going to be important for our select committee on community safety. So I'll let Councillor Bell describe those impacts. We had a meeting today of that safety committee, and just to talk about a bit about the results of the October 3rd public meeting, what went well, what didn't go so well, and what we really owe the community going forwards. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Councillor McLaughlin.
The chair. October 23rd to 25th, I was in Vancouver at a Livable Cities Forum. The theme was multi-solving for a resilient future, and I think the main feature too was showing a climate toolkit for housing infrastructure. And it's really important to do that. Again, you're probably wondering what multi-solving is, but it's to basically address numerous issues with one application, like to look at equity, to look at green infrastructure, to look at housing, to look at how to involve youth, how to do reconciliation, to wrap all these different things up into your project. And I think these are the things that are going to be looked for when you do apply for infrastructure projects using this tool, which is in essence, a very long application form that you have to do online. So it was very informative that way. Met a lot of interesting people with interesting things. Really went on a walking tour of some of the infrastructure at the city of Vancouver near Commercial Drive, and how they've taken some of their parks and changed them to take all that storm runoff, so that when we do have a big storm, it's not going to inundate the system so much, but be absorbed by the parks. And it was very interesting to go on that walk. So I did as well go to the October 27th to 30th Safety and Wellbeing Conference in Victoria, hosted by Marian Alto, the mayor. I think, just in summary, from my point of view, she basically went through all the things we have to pay for to try and deal with this issue. It's not just our issue, it's everywhere. They have about a population of about 400,000 they draw from. And of course, the needy folks end up down in their downtown. So she's been really doing a great job trying to tackle that. But I think it's a similar approach that we've been taking to, which I think is good. Luckily, we're on a much smaller scale. Because I did go on a walking tour of the safe inhalation site. It's a real eye opener to walk right through those facilities and see how the people are quite well supported in terms of getting through their tough times there. So I also did a walking tour of the downtown. I used to be a planner in the area, and the idea of the city taking on an extra role to make sure that places are clean and safe, because tourism is very important there. But they started up a whole department and a lot of different teams coming together on a daily basis to make sure that they can keep on top of that, which I think was really helpful to see how they had sort of done that and rebranded their downtown to be exactly that, so that people feel safe and that it is shiny and wonderful, which is what people want when they go there in the summer. A little bit on urban park planning. I'll let our other counselors refer to the details of maybe what they saw in their sessions. Halloween, Thursday night, Trail Bay Mall, lots of kids, lots of very interesting, along with Councillor Rowe, et cetera, and the staff. So my favorite costumes were the dueling dinosaurs. I wish I had a video of it, but it was very, very entertaining all around. And it was great to see all the parents out with their kids. It always makes you happy to see all those kids. And they love it when you give them candy, which I sort of hesitate to do, but I did it anyway. And then November 1st, the day after that, we had a green bylaws update, which was great at the Botanical Garden. It was the environmental law people at University of Victoria who have been championing these bylaws and writing them and encouraging us to use them over the years. They were asked to come and present by the group of people in Half Moon Bay that were very concerned about what was going on in their community, and they wanted to talk about how to do this better and how to get green bylaws updated, and also how to have the RD and us and Gibson's look at streamlining our OCPs together, because of course nature doesn't really care about our boundaries, but how to take that as an opportunity of a lifetime really to integrate green infrastructure and ecological systems and protect them more than we have in the past. So those are the highlights. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have anything to report out on for the last 2 weeks, other than it's always a great time to have the kids stampeding through the mall on Halloween. So I know there was a couple of haunted houses that were really popular in the community, including 2 on my street. Yeah, glad we didn't really have any substantial incidences on Halloween, but yeah, don't really have anything to report. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, Halloween, that was fun at the mall. There were some amazing costumes and parents way better than me that got dressed up with their kids in theme, like way better than me. The only thing I'm going to talk about is not actually political, it's hockey related. And I just want to say on November 2nd is the 50th anniversary of somebody putting on skates and going out and playing hockey in this community. And so we marked that at the Tsunami game along with minor hockey. We had 735 people out in the arena to watch that game and we won, thank God. But honest to God, every week that I'm able to volunteer, I run the Darnell and I do the front of house for the Tsunami team. And it's just so rewarding to see all the families coming out and all the date nights and all the gaggle of teenagers that come and that's what they're doing. Like it's totally exactly what we always intended it for when we first started talking about it 8 years ago. So just if you get a chance, go to a game. Coastalhockey.ca has the full schedule. And I'm going to head up to Zoom right now and turn it over to Mayor Henderson for your report.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Well, I unfortunately got sick on the night of the 30th, so I missed out on all the Halloween fun. I want to congratulate, of course, Randine Neal on her election as our new MLA. I think can speak for all of us that we look forward to working with her and the government as they get their feet under their new desks. And of course, we can all appreciate the energy that goes into being a candidate. So a shout out to all the candidates and their teams for their, I guess, their dedication to and the support of Sechelt. October 24th, I attended the People's Choice Awards, and it's a reminder of how many dynamic and really talented entrepreneurs we have in the community. It's fun to see everybody getting excited and walking, having their pictures taken, the fancy pictures and stuff. So, but mostly it's a reminder to support your local businesses. I note that today is our second anniversary as council. And while our term has certainly had its challenges, I remain committed to delivering on our priorities. Seems we certainly have some more work to do internally, but hopefully this can be addressed soon so we can get on with doing everything we can to make Sechelt even better. I read with interest Councillor Toth's report from the SCRD on water, and I think it's never too soon to focus on water for the future. And I suppose in that, I just highlight one thing, and that is that we as council need to really, I suggest, get focused on how are we going to use the reclaimed water from our Water Resource Center, whether it's supplement flows in Chapman Creek, or perhaps there are other ways of using this really valuable resource. 2 bits of scheduling things. In the last week in November, I will be in Ottawa for the GMF meetings. And if council wishes, I'll have time to meet with federal government officials to advocate for Sechelt and the Sunshine Coast. And then I'll be taking some time off in the 2 weeks following that. We've got some friends coming in early December, some who've never been to Sechelt, so I look forward to entertaining them here and also in Vancouver. Oh, and last but not least, shout out to the BC Hydro crews and contractors. I think everybody appreciates that the power lines never fall in a nice sunny, bright day. It's always in the middle of a windstorm and a rainstorm and snow and hail and everything else. And these folks go out and work. I was told they can actually work upwards of 20 hours a day in certain extreme situations. So my thanks. I'm sure we all agree that it's amazing what they were able to do for us. I think most of us had our power on within 6 or 7 hours, and good on them. So thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Rowe, for chairing today.
Thanks. Counselor Inkster.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things. Halloween was a fun event. I wasn't actually able to be out that night. I was working. So sadly not in the mall with 2 council members and staff. What a great idea. I hope they keep doing it. Maybe it'll fall on a night. I'm assuming Friday next year, so it'll fall on a night I can actually be there. But I was able to come into Municipal Hall in my costume, so I think some people figured it out, others may not have. But that's okay, maybe they have now. But that was lots of fun, and then I was in different parts of Sechelt with that same costume, and I was happy to do what was intended, which was scare a lot of people. Don't worry, to some I didn't have my electoral name on the back of my costume when I was doing that. But that was such a fun series of events. I just wanted to go quickly to the water event that happened, water and wind event that happened a few days ago. Yes, the crews worked very hard. I think the last neighborhood in Sechelt to get power, because we do represent Sechelt, is Wakefield Road, I think, in that area. Was the last ones to get power, I think, after Sandy Hook, after West Sechelt, and East Porpoise Bay, which came on that night. But I think there's parts of the coast that are still out. I think Half Moon Bay, I hope they're on finally. I sure hope they are. They're not on yet? Yeah, sad. There's a lot of issues with many days without power, as we know, freezers, food, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope that comes on soon. But I wanted to do a little bit more of a DOS thing. Hydro, of course, was working, but our crews were out quickly to deal with a number of trees that had fallen down in Sechelt, and those trees were, as I could tell, quickly cleaned up, especially obviously those away from wires, so that people can continue to have a semblance of, other than the power off at home, could have a regular life, a normal life that day, getting to and from their neighborhoods, getting their kids to and from school. There was a number of them that went down in West Sechelt. And I actually was happy with a crew that was quick to deal with one of my neighbors who had a tree fall in their front yard and it looks like just missed their house, and our crew was there within hours, probably 1 or 2 to clean it up and put it aside to be cleaned up. And I just got to tell this council and the staff that makes us look really good when we're there to help. Thank you.
Counselor Bell.
So I'll finish off with, again, Councillor Shepherd just spoke about the conference in Victoria, the Community Safety and Wellbeing Conference. Really, just to summarize, there was a number of municipalities all across BC, all different sizes. The bottom line is that everyone is experiencing, some tremendous issues around unhoused, addiction, and really leading to community safety and crime. And really what was the well-being piece of it was talking about how important it is that really just what we need is just to have Maslow's hierarchy in place. If we don't have well-being, if we don't have a roof over our head, if we don't have food. And so it took an overall, more of a larger sort of a view, if you like, about well-being and some of the impacts of some of the things that we're seeing. We're in the long game. That's the message from the Mayor of Victoria. It's going to be a long game. We've got a lot to do. A number of the municipalities reported out on what they're doing. Some are starting line, some are past the starting line, but everyone is in the starting line is what they're going to do around crime and safety, as well as unhoused, addiction, mental illness, etc. The big message is the province has got to step up more. They are responsible for health, that the municipalities do not have the resources or the capacity to be able to deal with these problems is becoming a serious problem for first responders. They are making a lot of the calls, whether it's our fire department or our paramedics or our RCMP. And what I heard from some of the people in those fields is now it's starting to take a tremendous toll on the staff and the people that are working those calls. So I think it was dark, I guess, to say the least, in terms of a bit discouraging, but at the same time, there was a message of hope throughout the conference that we can do what we can in our community. And what are the things that we can start to do to bring CUNY together to strengthen our community? And I just want to say that I am extremely proud of our staff and our council who had the courage, quite honestly, to put those community safety meetings on. Because to stand up there in front of people to, you know, sort of put yourself in a situation where people are very angry, emotional, and they're angry because they're afraid. And I want to say that just a huge shout out to the staff and volunteers in the council. Because that's what other municipalities are doing in terms of public engagement. And I think we took the big step to get out there and we moved things quickly. Finishing up the City of Victoria, just to use them as a benchmark, because I think they are, because the mayor is taking a very, very strong leadership role in this, is they have a 5-year plan that they're putting together. And that will start to be many, many elements of data research, public engagement, and then rolling the plan out into their community. Just a couple of the numbers. City of Nanaimo right now has 1,000 unhoused people right now. And, you know, things like Councillor Shepherd heard, you know, from Vernon, there's 2 encampments there right now with 150 people in each encampment. And just some of the stats were staggering. So being hopeful and finishing off, we're doing a great job here. You know, we're listening, we're getting to it, and you know, we're going to keep working on this. So I thank everyone in this room that has been a part of that. And then I just wanted to say that I also, Councillor McLaughlin, she covered the green bylaws for the Sunshine Coast, and really just to read that it was a report that was commissioned to inform the OCPs updates for the lower Sunshine Coast. So the timing was really to acknowledge that the SCRD is a local government partnership between the District of Sechelt, Town of Gibsons, and the Sechelt Nation. And so again, really an opportunity for us to take the OCPs now and look at them and see how we might bring in some of the green bylaws. It was put on by the Sunshine Coast Conservation Association, good turnout, and some group work. And we had our director, Director Allen, and our planning department spoke, and some of the other staff were there and represented us very well and shared some of the good information around what we're doing as well. So. Two good events. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Donna. Good. Motion to adjourn, I think. Oh, I'm sorry. Any emergency items, Mr. Yates?
No emergency items, Your Worship.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor. Feel better, Ms. Mayor Henderson.